Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Myself, Dr. D.C. Saxena, Professor and Head of the Department of Food Engineering and Technology at Sant Longowal Institute of Engineering and Technology, Longowal. I am presenting you the paper Technology of Meat, Poultry, Fish and Seafood Products. And the present module will give you the different aspects of cooking as a basic preparatory procedure of meat, which will be explained to you by my co-author, Mrs. Aarti.
Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Khan Nadia from Sant Longwal Institute of Engineering and Technology on behalf of Ms. Aarti. Today I'm going to talk about Module 12 of paper number 8, Technology of Meat, Poultry, Fish and Seafood. In this module, we will be learning about basic preparatory procedures of meat cooking. There are two basic methods of cooking meat. These are moist heat and dry heat. What method is used will depend on what type of meat it is, what part of animal it's from, and what the desired taste and appearance outcome are for the dish being prepared. The method chosen to cook a certain cut of meat should relate directly to the inherent tenderness of that cut. In cooking methods, dry heat cooking methods are used for cuts of meat that are tender or delicate. In dry heat cooking methods, the food being cooked does not use water to cook the food. The food is left dry and heat is applied to cook the food. Such methods of cooking are baking, steaming, grilling, and roasting. When heat is applied to the food cooks in its own juice, or the water added to the food during its preparation evaporates during the heating process, and this cooks the food. Heat is applied directly to the food by the way of convection, thus making the food to get cooked. The action or movement of air around the food cooks it. Now, moist heat cookery methods. In moist heat cookery methods, liquid is used as a medium to cook the food. Such medium could be water, coconut cream, or oil. These liquids are added to food before heat is applied to it, or sometimes heat is applied to the liquid before the food is added into the cooking utensils to be cooked. The moist heat cookery methods include boiling, stewing, shallow frying, deep frying, barbecuing, and basting. All these moist heat cooking methods use liquid to cook the food in. Less tender cuts of meat require moist heat cooking methods to help break down the tough connective tissues. In this module, we will be discussing the different cooking methods used for meat cooking. Methods are classified as dry heat cooking and moist heat cooking. In dry heat cooking, there are broiling, frying, deep fat frying, sauteing and pan frying, stir frying, deglazing, grilling, and roasting. In moist heat cooking, there are basting, braising, boiling, clay pot cooking, poaching, simmering, sauce white, steaming, and stewing. It's important to select the proper cooking method for the cut of meat. Less tender cuts of meat require moist heat cooking methods to help break down the tough connective tissues. Moist heat cooking means moisture is added to the meat and the meat is cooked slowly or a long time. Tender cuts of meat do not require moisture and long or slow cooking. They are usually cooked with a dry heat method. There are two base methods of cooking meat, which are moist heat method and dry heat method. There are two basic methods of cooking meat: dry heat cooking method and moist heat cooking method. Moist heat cooking methods comprise any techniques that involve cooking with moisture, whether it is steam, water, stock, wine, or some other liquid. Cooking temperatures are much lower, anywhere from 140 degree Fahrenheit to a maximum of 212 degree Fahrenheit, because water does not get any hotter than that. Examples of moist heat cooking method include basting, braising, boiling, clay pot cooking, poaching, simmering, sauce vide, steaming, and stewing. Dry heat cooking refers to any cooking technique where the heat is transferred to the food item without using any moisture. Dry heat cooking characteristically involves high heat with temperatures of 300 degree Fahrenheit or hotter. Tender cuts of meat do not require moisture and long, slow cooking. They are typically cooked with a dry heat method, including broiling and frying, deep fat frying, sauteing, pan frying, stir frying, deglazing, grilling, and roasting. Dry heat cooking. Dry heat cooking refers to any cooking technique where the heat is transferred to the food item without using any moisture. Dry heat cooking typically involves high heat with temperatures of 300 degree Fahrenheit or hotter. Tender cuts of meat do not require moisture and long slow cooking. They are usually cooked with a dry heat method, including broiling, frying, deep fat frying, sauteing, pan frying, stir frying, deglazing, grilling, and roasting. Moist heat cooking methods include any techniques that involve cooking with moisture, whether it is steam, water, stock, wine, or some other liquid. Cooking temperatures are much lower, anywhere from 140 degree Fahrenheit to a maximum of 212 degree Fahrenheit, because water does not get any hotter than that. Examples of moist heat cooking methods include basting, braising, boiling, clay pot cooking, poaching, simmering, sauce vide, steaming, and stewing. Broiling. It's cooking by exposing food to direct radiant heat either on a grill or live coals or below a gas burner or electric coil. Broiling differs from roasting and baking in that food is turned during the process so as to cook one side at a time. Temperatures are higher for broiling than for roasting. The broil indicator of a household range is typically set around 550 degree Fahrenheit, whereas large commercial appliances broil between 700 degree and 1000 degree Fahrenheit. Broiling is a quick, dry heat cooking method done in the oven using the broiler setting. Use of more tender cuts. Less tender cuts can be used if marinated. Broiling is cooking by direct heat from a flame, electric unit, or glowing coals. Meat is cooked one side at a time. Choose tender beef steaks, lamb chops, cured ham slices, and bacon for broiling. Use steaks or chops cut 1 to 2 inches thick. If steaks or chops are less than 1 inch thick, pan broil them. Different types of frying. Frying is the cooking of food in fat. This takes several forms from deep frying, where the food is completely immersed in hot oil, to sauteing, where food is cooked in a frying pan where there is only a thin coating of oil. Frying is the fastest way to cook, as it's the most efficient way to transfer heat into the food. Despite using liquid oil, frying is considered to be a dry cooking method, as water is not used in the cooking process, and ideally the cooking oil will not be absorbed by the food. Thus, no moisture is added by cooking. Deep fat fry. Deep fat fry is an extremely fast cooking method, and despite the use of liquid oil, is best classified as a dry cooking method because it does not involve liquid water. With a deep fat fryer, deep frying is reasonably safe, but hot cooking oil is intrinsically dangerous, and one should be very careful so as to avoid fires and or severe burns. Sauteing. Saute is French for jumping, used to describe the action of food in the pan as it's tossed around to prevent burning. When sauteing, which is a type of frying, the fat is placed in a shallow pan, and when it's sufficiently hot, the food is put into it. When cooking, the fat should not come up the sides of the food being cooked. The food basically cooking on a thin layer of fat. Foods that are to be sauteed are usually sliced thin or cut into small pieces, and they are turned frequently during the process of cooking. Pan frying. Pan frying is the method of using a frying pan to cook meat. You can add oil to some meats or simply fry the meat's own fat. For thicker cuts of the meats, cook on medium to high heat for longer periods of time to ensure doneness in the mild sections of the meat. Cover the pan to trap the steam and promote through cooking. Stir frying. It involves frying food quickly over very high heat in an oiled pan. While stir frying, you generally stir continuously. Tips on pan frying. Even thickness. For even cooking, ensure meat is of even thickness. Some cuts, for example lamb cutlets, etc., can be battered out or lightly pounded with a meat mallet to flatten slightly. First, cover meat with plastic wrap to prevent mallet sticking to it. Then dry meat surfaces. Pat meat dry before frying. Wet meat will not brown well. Drain marinated meat well before frying then blot dry with paper towels. When pan frying thin slices or strips of beef or lamb, a protective coating keeps meat moist and aids browning. Coat with flour or flour spice mixture immediately before cooking. Some other coatings are corn flour, pea flour, beaten egg or egg whites and bread crumbs. Third is the pan size. It uses a suitably wide pan so meat is not crowded during cooking. Too much meat added to a small pan reduces temperature and slows down cooking. Temperature control. For frying, use clean, fresh fat or oil. Heat oil or fat to correct temperature before putting meat in. It should haze or shimmer but not smoke. If oil is too cool, food can absorb it and meat will not brown quickly enough. During frying, adjust temperature to keep heat moderate to high so food sears quickly without burning. Last tip is drain before serving. To keep food crisp after frying, drain it well on absorbent paper. If holding food after frying, use dry heat and keep holding time to a minimum. Beef cuts suitable for frying. The tender, fine-grained beef cuts of fillet, rib-eye, sirloin, T-bone, rump and seamed rump are suitable for pan frying. Lamb cuts suitable for frying. Cutlets, short loin and middle loin chops, eye of short loin, lamb fillet, rump chops and steaks, thick flank and topside steaks, lamb channel and lamb topside or silver side steaks are all good to pan fry. Grilling is a form of cooking that involves dry heat applied to the surface of food, commonly from above or below. Grilling usually involves a significant amount of direct radiant heat and tends to be used for cooking meat quickly. Food to be grilled is cooked on a grill, an open wire grid such as gridiron with a heat source above or below. A grill pan similar to a frying pan but with raised ridges to mimic the wires of an open grill or griddle, a flat plate heated from below. Heat transfer to the food using a grill is primarily via thermal radiation. Heat transfer when using a grill pan or griddle is by direct conduction. In United States, when the heat source of grilling comes from above, grilling is termed as broiling. In this case, the pan that holds the food is called a broiler pan and heat transfer is by thermal radiation. Grilling cooks fast because very high temperatures are used. The food can be positioned close to the heat source. The energy passes from the heat source almost instantly without having to be carried in a liquid or through much air. Only certain types of food are suitable for the intense dry heat of grilling. In general, they should be tender items which are of good quality. Small, large joints of meat must be cut into thin slices or steaks, regular in shape to ensure even cooking. Grilling techniques. Overheat grilling. Food is placed on a rack or grill bars or a gas, charcoal grill or barbecue. The grill rack must be preheated and the meat lightly brushed with oil before cooking. Underheat grilling. Food is placed under a gas or electrical salamander or heat element. The salamander must be preheated for fast searing. Between heat grilling. This method uses radiant heat, convection heat, or a combination of both. The meat is placed between heated grill bars in a vertical toaster or grill, a convection or conveyor on. Grilling tips. Trim meat if necessary. Remove silver skin, connective tissue or fat. Then dry meat browns better than wet meat. Pat wet or marinated meat dry before grilling. Brush meat with oil or rub with infused oil. This adds flavor and prevents meat from sticking to grids. Season at the last minute. If adding salt or salt spice mixtures, do this immediately before cooking. If salt is left on the meat surface, it draws out juices. Be careful not to burn spices. With dry herb spice rubs used to impart flavor, brush off excess before grilling, and an option is to brush over the surface with oil before cooking to prevent burning dry rub ingredients. Marinating and basting. Before cooking, beef or lamb steaks may be marinated in mixtures of oil with vinegar, wine or citrus juice, herbs and spices, etc. to help tenderize and add flavor. Drain meat of marinade and blow dry before pan grilling. Searing and browning. Always preheat your grill so the meat browns quickly. Because the heat is intense, care should be taken to avoid overcooking lean meats that can dry out. For best results with thinner beef or lamb steaks, sear them fast to develop color and flavor. Then let them rest in a warm place for a few minutes before serving. Thick steaks or cuts can be seared quickly, then heat reduced to medium or low to complete cooking at a more gentle heat. Trellising beef or lamb steak can be marked in a lattice pattern, sometimes called cordelage, by searching each side twice on a rigid griddle pan or barbecue grid. Use tongs when turning the meat and grill the presentation side first as it gives a better appearance. Resting times. Before serving, allow beef or lamb to rest in a warm place for a short time depending on size. Large cuts can rest longer than smaller. A 200-gram steak may rest for 2 to 3 minutes. Resting allows the muscle fibers to relax and more juices are retained in the meat. Beef steaks to grill, pan grill, char grill or barbecue. The tender fine grained cuts of fillet, rib eye, sirloin, T-bone, rump and steamed rump are suitable for grilling, as is the less tender flank steak. These cuts are also good for pan frying. Lamb steaks to grill or barbecue. A lamb steak is a boneless cut. A chop has bone in. Cutlets, short loin and middle loin chops, eye of short loin, lamb fillet, rump chops and steaks, thick flank and topside steak and lamb topside or silver side steaks are all good to grill. These cuts are also good to pan fry. To butterfly cut. When slicing a small boneless piece of meat, take the knife almost through the meat to the cutting board on every second cut. This produces hinged slices which can be opened out flat like a book, thus giving double-sized pieces. A butterfly leg is a bone leg opened out flat. Pan grilling. Pan grilling is another fast, dry heat method suitable for tender cuts, but the meat is cooked directly on heated surfaces, usually a heavy cast iron pan, ridged griddle pan, or on a metal hot plate. The cooking surface may be lightly greased, but minimal fat or oil is used. This is not frying. Pan grill, then oven finish. Thick steaks can be seared on a ridged grill pan, then finished in the oven preheated to 180 to 190 degrees Celsius. The seared steaks placed on a tray in the oven must be turned halfway through the oven cooking. This method is practical when preparing a set menu for large numbers. It ensures the meat is cooked to the same degree and achieves more consistency in cooking. Roasting. Roasting is high heat baking with very little moisture. Roasted foods get drier and browned on the outside by initially exposing it to a high temperature. This keeps most of the moisture from being cooked out of the food. Temperature is then lowered to cook the meat through. The flavors of both meat and vegetables are retained and enhanced by roasting. A typical roasting temperature is 425 to 450 degree Fahrenheit, with an initial temperature of over 500 degree Fahrenheit for a period of 15 to 20 minutes. Roasting works well for large cuts of beef, pork or lamb such as roasts, ribs, leg of lamb or pork loins. Depending on size, you can brown the meat in a pan before roasting by seasoning with salt, pepper and oil. After browning, place the meat in a roasting pan and make sure the fat side is turned up. The oven should be preheated up to 450 degrees Celsius. If you have not browned the meat beforehand, then roast at 450 degree for approximately 20 minutes. Then turn the temperature down to 325 degrees Celsius. Braising. Braising is a form of moist heat cooking in which the item to be cooked is partially covered with liquid and then simmered slowly at a low temperature. Though it can be done on the stove top, braising is best done in the oven because the heat fully surrounds the pot and causes the food to cook more evenly than if it were only heated from below. Braising is a good choice of cooking method for cuts of meat that are tougher or from older animals. The connective tissues that are more prevalent in cuts like this and which can make meat tough and chewy when improperly cooked are slowly dissolved through long, slow applications of moist heat. Braising causes the muscle fibers to absorb moisture from cooking liquid and steam. That gives you a juicy piece of meat. Finally, as the connective tissues break down, they dissolve and form gelatin, which thickens the cooking liquid and gives it body and shine. Large cuts of meat can be braised as with so-called pot roast methods for braising. In a large skillet or Dutch oven, slowly brown the meat on all sides. Use a small amount of oil. Second, pour off and discard drippings and season as desired. Then add a small amount of liquid such as wine or broad juice or beer. Cover the pan with a tight fitting lid to contain steam. Simmer on the stove top or in oven at 300 Fahrenheit until fork tender. Tips on braising. Use the appropriate meat cut. Meat cuts with a certain amount of marbling and gelatinous connective tissue retain juiciness better than very lean cuts when cooked long and slowly. Browning meat. Although browning is not essential, it is desirable since it not only improves color but also develops flavor. Tightly cover. A tight fitting lid holds in steam that helps to soften the connective tissue, making the meat more tender. A sheet of buttered baking paper placed over the meat under the lid helps to prevent the surface from drying. Temperature control. After initial browning at a low temperature, maintaining a sub-simmer is important. While prolonged simmering or cooking close to the boil is necessary to soften the connective tissue and make soft meat tender. It also dries lean meat out. As meat is heated, muscles coagulate and proteins shrink, squeezing out water. Cooking meat in liquid does not stop this water loss. For braising, oven temperature may be between 130 and 160 degrees Celsius, seldom higher. Cooking time. Overcooking can make braised meat dry and stringy. Cook a braise until just tender. Check for readiness at intervals. If the meat is ready but the cooking liquid has not reduced enough to give a good sauce consistency, remove the meat while you complete the sauce. Then return the meat to the hot sauce. Poaching. Poaching is a very gentle, moist heat method of cooking using a minimum amount of reduced liquid or stock that is kept at just below simmering point, approximately between 90 to 94 degrees Celsius. Poaching liquid should show very little movement, a mere murmur or shimmer at the surface with no sign of bubbles bursting. Poaching methods. Poaching can be done on stove in a pan, in a bread pan, or in a covered dish in the oven at between 160 to 180 degrees Celsius. Poaching temperatures are lower than those used for simmering, and poaching times are shorter. Tender cuts with low amounts of connective tissue are best for poaching. Simmering. Simmering is a slow, gentle, moist method of cooking in liquid or stock, usually in a deeper pan than that used for poaching. Liquid is heated to just below boiling point, approximately 95 to 99 degrees Celsius, higher than that used for poaching. With slightly more movement in the cooking liquid, tiny bubbles rising slowly to the surface and only occasionally bursting. This is much less movement than when boiling. Simmering can be done in a deep pan, stock pot, on the stove, kettle, bread pan, or in a combination oven. Simmering is best for cuts with higher amounts of connective tissue which need long, slow cooking to tenderize them. But this method can also be used for more tender cuts. For example, beef rump cooked medium rare to medium degree of doneness. Stewing. In stewing, meat cut into smaller pieces or cubes is cooked gently in liquid to completely cover it, and the vegetables are included. A stew can be simmered in a pot on the stove top or cooked in a covered casserole in the oven. Stewing is suitable for the least tender cuts of meat that become tender and juicy with the slow moist heat method. Cuts having a certain amount of marbling and gelatinous connective tissue give moist, juicy stews. When stewing lean meat, even though it's surrounded by liquid, it can become dry in texture if cooked at too high a temperature for too long. While prolonged simmering or cooking close to the boiling is necessary to soften the connective tissue and make tough meat tender. It also dries lean meat out. A stew is a combination of solid food ingredients that have been cooked in liquid and served in resultant gravy. Ingredients in a stew can include any combination of vegetables such as carrots, potatoes, beans, peppers, and tomatoes, etc. Meat, especially tougher meats, suitable for slow cooking such as beef, poultry, sausage, and seafood are also used. While water can be used as the stew cooking liquid, wine, stock, and beer are also common. Seasoning and flavorings may also be added. Stews are typically cooked at a relatively low temperature, allowing flavors to mingle. Steaming. Steaming is a moist heat cooking process. The meat does not come in contact with the cooking liquid but instead is cooked by surrounding steam, sometimes under pressure. Steaming results in tender, well flavored, juicy meat with minimum weight loss or shrinkage. Steaming under pressure is fast and easy, saves on energy and provides accurate meat portioning and cost control. In atmosphere steaming, meat cooked directly or indirectly with steam in following ways. Directly in a steamer. Steam is generated within the steaming chamber and is fed into the chambers from a separate boiler. Indirectly or in covered pan, sealed containers of food are placed or in a deep pan of boiling water. Perforated trays or vessels can be used, but this method requires pans or containers with tight fitting lids to contain steam. High pressure steaming. It's used for ultra quick cooking, mainly used for vegetables and processed meat products. Combination and steam oven cooking. High capacity steamer oven can cook by steam using moist heat or dry heat or a combination of both. Vacuum cooking by steam, also called sauce vide. It's used to cook food in vacuum sealed plastic pouches by combination of steam and convection oven between 70 to 100 degrees Celsius. Low to moderate temperature steaming. Cooking of meat between 70 to 100 degrees Celsius. This method is ideal for steam blanching, preserving, steam cooking, cooking in vacuum, thawing, reconstituting, and reheating meat. So, students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. So, the method chosen to cook a certain cut of meat should relate directly to the inherent tenderness of that cut. Tenderness is determined by where on the animal the meat comes from, the degree of marbling, the age of animal, how the meat was stored, and how the meat was prepared for market. It's important to select the proper cooking method for the cut of meat, like less tender cuts of meat require moist heat cooking methods to help break down the tough connective tissues. Moist heat cooking means moisture is added to the meat and the meat is cooked slowly or a long time. Examples of moist heat cooking methods include basting, braising, boiling, clay pot cooking, poaching, simmering, sauce vide, steaming, and stewing. Among moist heat cooking method, boiling is most common and simplest method. But the main drawback of this method is the nutrients can get lost or destroyed and the flavor can be reduced. On the other hand, tender cuts of meat do not require moisture and long or slow cooking. They are usually cooked with a dry heat method, including roasting, broiling, pan frying, and grilling. That's all about the basic preparatory procedures of meat cooking. Thank you.
Now you have been given the knowledge about the different aspects of cooking as a basic preparatory procedure of meat, which has been well explained by my co-author, and further, as a basic preparatory procedure of meat, the canning of meat will be explained to you in the next module. Thank you.